Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, founder and CEO at recruiting firm Riderflex. If you enjoyed today's guest interview, please give it a like and be sure to subscribe to the Riderflex podcast. And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
Try the #1 marketing platform for small business. Everything you need from design to marketing to CRM. Learn more at marketing360.com. Marketing 360. Fuel your brand.
Patty Beach on the Riderflex podcast. Hi, Patty. How are you?
Great. Thank you for being here.
So first thing I got to ask you about, did you grow up in Oklahoma or you just went to OU and you grew up somewhere else?
Well, I actually went to school at OU, OSU, and University of Tulsa. So
I saw that.
hit all the big schools there. But anyway, and I was born in Venezuela. So I grew up in the oil patch, and that's how I ended up in Oklahoma for school.
I see.
And
So
you and I share
your
that.
dad was in oil or no?
My dad was in oil. So he was working in Venezuela for as an expat, and he had his girls there. I come from a family of 6 girls. So I'm the 5th of 6 girls.
Whoa. Where are you? Where are you in the mix?
I am the 5th of 6 girls. So I've got one baby sister. She's an environmental engineer. So a lot of us followed in my dad's footsteps. He was a petroleum engineer. So we did science and stuff like that. And I ended up becoming a geoscientist because I wanted to follow in his footsteps. And I went to oil patch for 15 years myself.
I saw that. So he was a lifelong oil guy. How about your mom? Of course, I don't know, 6 girls. That was probably her full-time job. I don't know.
My mom actually always wanted to be a nurse. And when she was growing up, that was discouraged. Only the spinsters became nurses. So she got her MRS degree, went to college, married my dad, and then started a family. And they loved to travel around the world. That was one of their things they wanted to do. They were kind of boomers, he had the GI Bill and all that. And so I got to live in Venezuela, and I lived in Argentina growing up. We had a ranch in Mexico.
Cool.
And then interesting to know about my mom was that after she had 6 kids, she went to nursing school and became a nurse. So she finally did what she really wanted to do.
Wow. How about that? Oh, yeah. She's retired now, obviously, I'm guessing.
Well, she's passed, unfortunately, but
Okay.
she was an amazing person because she just had this gift for connecting with people. Everywhere we went around the world, she would cook and people would come over and she would learn the recipes from that place and they would teach her how to cook and she would teach them her recipes. And so our house was always one of those households that just had a lot of love going down. And
that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
How long has she been gone?
Oh, she died in, I don't know, sometimes I can't remember, but like 27 or something like that, 2007.
Or
I have this
2007.
thing where I go like, wow, is mom really gone? Because she feels like she's here,
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it's a weird thing.
Yeah, you know what? You answered that question like a lot of people do. They have to kind of pause like that because they forget like how long. My wife and I were just having this conversation the other day. I said, well, how long has your mom been gone? And same thing, kind of this pause and like, oh yeah, how many years has it been? You're right. That's kind of how you think of it. So your dad's passed away too. He lived just a few years after your mom, but what were they married? Like 40 years, 50 years, something like that?
More than 50 years. Yeah. And with those 6 girls, I mean, you gotta appreciate a man who could live with my mom, my grandmother, and his 6 daughters, And he was a man's man. Like, in fact, I was just talking to my nephew the other day, and he said, Grandpa was like a Marlboro man, wasn't he? And I was like, yeah, he did. He like rode horses. He had a ranch in Mexico. He did engineering.
Nice.
And
Nice.
He'd go rock hunting. Anyway, but he was also.
I'm gonna guess he was born in the 30s.
1927.
27. Wow. Okay. Mm-hmm. Those guys born right there, like 25 to 40. They were different. Right? They were a different breed. My dad was born in 30. Yeah, they were kind of the Marlboro man, weren't they? Of course, I was
going to say one thing is that, I saw my dad go through a huge transformation, which is interesting because he started real Marlboro tough and everything, but then as he got older, he kind of softened up. And it was really interesting. Eventually, after he retired, he started to do prison ministry as just kind of a hobby. And he had this ministry of, he had these rules, like, and one of them was listen, love, love. That was Dad's rule. You know, you just
Yeah,
listen.
that doesn't sound like a guy that was born in 27.
No, he went through big changes. And I don't know if it's because he had a bunch of daughters or, you know, just got his eyes open. But yeah, he went from, he was always a sweetheart, you know, that was just part of his personality.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was a really good listener and really loved people.
Did you grow up in a religious family then? Go to church on Sundays, things like
Well,
that?
we were Episcopal, went to Episcopal school sometimes growing up, and he went to church and sang the choir and stuff like that. But, you know, it was pretty waspy kind of religion, as they say. You know, I don't know if your listeners know what that reference is, but yeah.
Did you go to high school in Oklahoma then, or you didn't? When did you move to Oklahoma? How old were you?
In college.
Oh, okay. Okay. Gotcha. All right. And so, by the way, I grew up in Chickasha, Oklahoma, which is about 30 minutes southwest of Norman, just so you know.
Yeah.
So
too. That's awesome.
a little bit, but I don't hear any accent on you though. I don't hear any accent.
I think it was all the traveling, you know, growing up and everywhere. I lived in Alabama. All my family sounds like they're from Alabama. Like my sisters live in Alabama now.
Oh, really?
And if I have a couple of beers, the Alabama comes out, you know, and I think I'm bilingual Spanish. So sometimes
Oh,
that,
cool.
you know, I have a couple of Coronas and then that comes out, you know, and you're like, whoa, she can actually speak Spanish. You know?
That's nice. And then how about now? Are you married, kids, grandkids? Where are you at with your personal
Yeah.
life partner? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm married. I'm actually remarried. So it's my husband 2.0. So I was married for 25 years. Now I got my new, it's 7 years now. But anyway, he and I are two peas in a pod, and I'm as happy as I could be. And so I got my own 2 kids, and then he's got 2 kids who are my redheaded step kids. And I only say that because they're really redheaded, like they have this copper hair.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Everybody grown? All the kids grown?
pretty much. My youngest is 19, so he's still.
Young-
We're working
okay.
on how to, you know, move him out into his own bachelor pad pretty soon.
Here's an
Yeah.
idea. You just wake up one morning and say, hey, pack your shit, get out.
Well, you know what? It's kind of interesting. So we're going to talk a little bit about alignment, but we have a plan to do an alignment session with him about moving out, you know. And my niece, who works in my business, is going to be our alignment practitioner, kind of help us get it straight. Like, when are you moving out? How much are we going to subsidize you? You know, what are you going to have to do to keep this subsidy going and all this stuff, right? And all that. But anyway.
Any grandkids?
No grandkids, but I have a grandniece, and she is badass. She's the cutest little thing. She's a year and a half, and she lives really close to us, so she's almost like your granddaughter. Her name's Tippy,
All right.
and we call it the Tippy Hood is where we live right now. We live in the Tippy Hood.
The Tippy Hood. Okay, very
Yeah.
good. All right. All right. And so new husband, 7 years. He's from Colorado. Your second husband?
He's from Colorado. He works as a consultant with startups. He's a tech person, and he's really interested in tech that can have a positive impact on humanity.
Okay.
So that's his kind of bailiwick.
Okay. How'd you meet him?
You know, this is kind of embarrassing, but I did coach him many years ago, like almost in 2000. I was assigned to him as his coach. And that's how I met him. So people actually say that he has a little nickname called Frank and Roger, which means that he was created in my laboratory, you know, because as a coach, I got to cook him up, you know, like a perfect man, you know. And I actually had somebody like make a little poster when we got married, and had, you know, Roger in his chair, and it had all of these things, like these little levers, and it said, like, you know, a family man or whatever it was. I was like pulling the levers on him, you know? And he's like, in the chair. Anyway, it's pretty funny.
Let me guess. So you got divorced, you were single for a bit, and then within what, you called him up, you're like, hey, you remember me? I'm the one that coached you. What are you doing? Are you free for dinner? How'd that work?
Well, you know how this worked is I hadn't been coaching him for a long time, because he had his own startup, and he's like, I got a startup now, and I can't really afford you because I'm bootstrapping and all that stuff, right? But we would kind of sync up once in a while, because he would call me and say, hey, I've got this problem. If I take you to lunch, will you give me? And I'm like, that's kind of free, cheap coaching, not exactly, you know. And so we could have that kind of bit. So if I had time, I'd say, okay, yeah, I'll meet you. And so one of those times I was meeting him for lunch, and he said, you know, what's going on with you? Which might have been the first time in the whole years I've ever known him that he would ask me that, because as a coach, it was my job to pay attention to him, right?
Yes, right, right.
And I said, well, it's kind of a sad day. I just put my house up for sale because I'm, divorcing. And he goes, oh my God, I'm getting a divorce. And I'm like, oh God, I'm so sad for you, Anyways,
Wow, okay. All
that's
right.
how that kind of got going. And then he was like, well, what? Maybe you and I was like, no, friend zone, then client zone. That's like way out there, So it took a while for us to get out of that. But finally, I was like, yeah, and it was kind of funny because I don't know about you. Do you coaching too?
I mean, not like you, no. I mean, as a former CEO and now running my own business here, Riderflex, our recruiting firm. I mean, I definitely advise, and people will call me for tips, but nothing like your level.
Yeah, well, maybe you've been coached, but anyway, I have this thing that I pretty much fall in love with all my clients. Doesn't matter, what it is, not in a romantic way, but I
Yeah.
always get to know them. What is their
Mm,
passion? What are their
mhm,
ideas? And my
mhm.
husband Roger is very much like a lot of my clients. He's an idea guy and he wants to do things. That's why he loves working with startups, because he's with all of these young entrepreneurs that are just, got these great ideas and they're like babies that they're gestating and they want the babies to be able to like run on their own and be
Yeah,
okay, and all
yeah.
that. And so a lot of my book kind of was inspired by him,
Ah,
how to help people like him
okay,
get their ideas on the table, build a business, succeed. Um, so,
okay.
much of it. And also it was part of my Frank and Roger thing to like make them into an even better entrepreneurs,
Right, right. Oh,
you know.
how did you get to Boulder, Colorado in the first place? Because that's where you live now. How did you get to Colorado?
Well, I was a geoscientist for 15 years. I don't know if I mentioned that, but anyway, I
Yeah,
just love Earth and, I have this thing for hiking and mountains and all that. So it was my dream boat place to live.
I
And,
see.
and I just about mid-career after I left my career in geology from the energy industry and left Houston, it was my pick of where to go. I'd come out here for field camp and stuff like that. So I had a lot of good memories here.
I mean, you went from the dark side to the light, right? I mean, you worked for BP, you worked for an oil company and lived in Houston, and
Yeah.
then you moved to Boulder. I mean, that's like night and day.
Yeah. And I was a big tree hugger even back then,
Oh,
so I'm in
you were. Okay.
energy. I was a tree
Okay.
hugger back then,
Okay.
and even though I lived in the conservative Houston, the Bible Belt and all that, but I've always been this tree hugger who's kind of practical tree hugger. Like,
Okay.
I
Okay.
know I put gas in my car and why would I vilify these people that are doing something that we all need? We're, using plastic, et cetera. And so I try to minimize the use of all of those things. But when I was in the energy industry, I believe that there was a place for tree huggers, that if we didn't have good tree huggers in the business,
Mm,
what would it turn into? Right. So a
mm,
lot of people
mm,
think of the oil business as this, kind of, I don't know, corrupt
mm,
thing. And it's a
mhm,
bad business and it
mhm.
destroys the environment. A BP, I mean, was the worst ecological disaster.
Yep.
And I was actually a part of putting together the prospect where we got that block that when I was working for Amoco, which was later acquired by BP.
Mm.
And so that was one of the things that, really hit me because I lived in Alabama on the coast when that all the oil
Oh,
spilled and
oh,
stuff
I
like that.
see. I see.
Yeah.
Okay. I
But back to
see.
though being a tree hugger in there, I believe there's a place for tree huggers and I still do. I believe there's a place for every voice in a business. And that when leaders listen to those voices, then we come up with solutions that work better. And when we don't, then we end up, with things that could end up with an ecological disaster like the BP blowout. Um,
I love that practical tree hugger term. That's wonderful. Because I live in Colorado and I live close to
mhm.
Boulder, and I do have conversations with people from Boulder that they're so far out there that you can't even really have a logical conversation. It's like, hey man, listen, I hear you, but see, look around, look on the highway over there. The world does still operate around oil right now. We can't, you know, I don't mind having a logical, sensible, relaxed
Yeah.
conversation with a practical
Everything
tree
I
hugger.
do, I also am a believer in the triple bottom line. Profits are
Mm,
important,
mm,
people are important, and the
mhm,
planet is important. And
mhm,
as a leader, I want leaders to be looking at all of those parameters and all of those variables for whatever it is they do.
mm, mm,
Some people, there's a bigger impact on the planet, like oil and gas. You better have
mhm.
some tree huggers in there. If you don't, then it'll, we'll
Yeah,
end up with devastation.
yeah.
Um,
Good point. Really
Yeah.
good point. Yeah. So you're working in the energy, you were with BP for a long time, 12 years and so forth. Was there a moment, was there like a tipping point or something that triggered you to say, I want to be a professional coach for a living, or did you just kind of ease into it? Walk us through the transformation.
Okay. So first of all, I was a woman in oil and gas back in the late, 80s,
Yes.
early 90s. And, so I had to be one of those people who figured out the program to succeed, come in and follow all of the dude rules, to succeed, which I was able to do because I had a good mentor who was helping me along, wanted to see women succeed, was one of the good guys, a lot of good guys, all of the good guys, all the guys wanted to see women succeed, just didn't really know how. So I got involved in creating a women's resource group. It was the first one in the energy industry.
Ah,
And then we ended up creating, people wanted to know, well, how did you do that? Because it was successful. We actually were shaping the company. We implemented flex time. We implemented a childcare center on campus. And that childcare center was something not only women used, a lot of guys took their kids there, so it was very helpful for everyone. And we tried to really more humanize it. And then I got really interested in not only helping them set it up so it's good for women in terms of our lifestyle, but also that women have more influence on the business. How could we say something so that they would hear our point of view, and really incorporate that? And it wasn't always the way that the guys would say it. So I got involved in creating classes around understanding how women communicate, men communicate. And I did a lot of interventions. I created classes for communications at the Management Learning Center. And this is all in my side job while I'm a geologist, right?
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So actually not want to say side job. I was working there. Like they let me do these things in the company.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the other thing that I found really interesting was how we made decisions. It felt like a lot of decisions were top down. And if you were a woman and you weren't in the room, or maybe you were lower on the totem pole, or maybe you're a geologist and there were engineers making the decisions, that it wasn't inclusive enough. And having come from a family of girls where, no one was boss over anyone else, I thought there's got to be a different way to do this. So it's not so command and control, top down, that we feel like we can say what we need to say without monitoring everything we say. So I went off to grad school again and to study organizational development at Pepperdine University. And I learned all these modalities to work in a different way, a more human way in the workforce. Like I learned about, they have the STAR model, or maybe, for example, just all kinds of socio-tech solutions like appreciative inquiry and all this kind of stuff. So I loved all the things that I learned, but I just thought they were too dang complicated. It was like, well, you got to get a grad degree and be an OD geek or a coach geek to think this is interesting, or you have to have a lot of money in a company to study all of these things. So I made it my goal to just simplify it. How can we create the best of the masculine style of leadership of, logic and agendas and getting stuff done and having metrics and all of these things, and having structure and hierarchy with the more feminine style. I want to talk about masculine and feminine, men and women can do both of these things, of nurturing people, putting people where their talents are, of noticing people's strengths, reinforcing people, giving people a break, having a little breather every once in a while so they can be creative.
Now you're formulating all this and doing this as you're going to grad school. Did you leave BP and you went to grad school, and were you working?
Well,
while you were
BP
going to
paid
school?
for me to go to grad school. They actually took an interest in what I was doing, and thought, we need more of this in the company.
I see.
And yeah, and so they gave me a platform. I went to their Management Learning Center and I taught classes. They were called Sources of Power, Understanding Masculine and Feminine Energy. That was what they were called back then,
Interesting.
Yeah, and I did my master's thesis on understanding masculine and feminine energy as an organizational intervention, so that's a lot of the blah, blah, blah long words, right? That I was really wanting to create this environment that everyone of every gender identity, no matter what, but, just all voices could be heard and every voice mattered. And it didn't mean that every voice matters means, okay, everybody gets a vote and we'll wait until everybody's happy to do something, but that there was an opportunity for people to share their point of view and feel that idea to feel welcome. Meanwhile, we would still narrow it down to the few ideas that were strategic to do, because we don't have all the time in the world to do there are lots of good ideas, but too many are not good. Then you end up with scatter, right? So alignment is really about helping the best ideas to rise to the top and the bad ideas to be removed faster, and for it to be something that people do together in a co-creative way, because co-creativity results in co-ownership. Like, I don't want to tear down something I've built. And so I wanted to engage people. We have a lot of words like this in business right now: engagement and inclusion, all that stuff. And it's a great concept and very aspirational, but most people don't know how to do it because
Right. Agreed.
have time, you know.
Agreed.
That's-
Agreed. Agreed. Let me ask you, I want to just make sure I understand the transition. So what happens? You finish your degree. Is this a slow transition?
I finished my degree, and BP had just acquired Amico, where I was working.
Okay.
And I took a severance package, and then I moved to Colorado, where I'd always wanted to leave. I wanted to get out of Houston.
Okay.
And as much as I loved Houston, I have to say Colorado is better. I like it better anyway.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I moved out to where I always wanted to be, so I could, and I made it my life's goal, start my own business and make it such that I could ski every Wednesday. I want to be able to ski in the middle of the week when nobody was there,
Nice.
So that was my goal. I did that the first year I was here. I got hiking boots and skis, and that was my be all end all,
Very good. Okay. And did you start, and by the way, the name of your company for the listeners, LeadershipSmarts, and it's leadershipsmarts.com. Did you do your original coaching under that brand name from the very beginning, or did that change later?
Well, I was originally True North Programs.
Oh, okay.
And so the idea being, as a leader, you want to find your true north. And we call it programs because my business partner, Jennifer Joyce, who's, shout out to her, she was an awesome mentor of mine and co-founder of the business. We wanted programs because we knew that leadership wasn't like an event. What we were seeing a lot of times is people doing like a class and then, oops, they never used it. Like, that was a waste of time, right? So we wanted to do development where it was a process. It had a combination of classes and coaching. So we did 6 to 12 month leadership programs.
And you and her, and that's how you started the business. It was just you and her in the beginning. And is she still with you?
Well, we were together for 13 years, and now she's moved into retirement. And so she lives in Mexico, and she actually is doing, she does a discipline called conscious uncoupling. So she helps coach couples. And she actually uses a lot of alignment practice because we developed that methodology together. She was a co-creator of alignment methodology. And she helps couples that are struggling. And so they do conscious uncoupling, but most of them don't uncouple because Jennifer is just an awesome, coach. So she helps them come together and get real clear about what they're creating together. Did
you change it to Leadership Smarts after she left? Is that when you?
Well, no, we both changed it to Leadership Smarts because what happened with True North Programs is True North Programs is kind of a long URL. And then also Bill George, who was like a Harvard guy, wrote a book called True North, and he started a company, and people would call us and think we were Bill George.
I see.
Yeah, and stuff like that. So Bill George is awesome. So like, if you think I'm Bill George, like, okay, yes. But no, actually not, right? But anyway, so then Leadership Smarts became available, and I'm like, this is exactly what we do. We believe that leadership is like multiple forms of intelligence: social intelligence, emotional intelligence, inclusive intelligence. So you want to bring those, make that something like a smarts you can develop, So
I see. Okay. Well, now's probably a good time. Give us the Leadership Smarts overview as it stands today, the elevator pitch, if you will. Give it to us.
Okay, so Leadership Smarts is, we like to say that we're a company that creates practical tools for powerful leadership. So as I mentioned, we develop leaders. I don't know if I mentioned that, but we do leadership development and executive coaching, and we develop coaches. So our specialty is alignment coaching. And alignment coaching helps create a leader that can practice alignment and become a master aligner, which is the key thing that leaders have to do. So a lot of organizations and leadership companies are focused a lot on the social emotional development of the leader, and they might do things like DISC profile, Myers-Briggs, and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't quite get to the heart of getting a lot of people in the room and getting them on the same page, moving together.
So is
That
it,
is like it. If you can't do
do you,
that, then, like, it's not leadership, right?
so
So,
is it more of a specialty to help the leader as an individual improve, or is it's more to help them improve their relationship and communication with the team?
well, we have, team coaching and leader coaching, and usually
Okay,
we do it together, leader and team
I see.
coaching.
I
And we
see.
work with them on 3 levels. So the first level is personal alignment. So if I don't know where I'm taking the team, then they're not going to follow me. Like, nobody's going to follow you if you don't even know where you're going. So we
Mm-hmm.
help leaders get really clear about what it is that they want to create, what are their ideas, and how do they put those ideas on the table, and anything they may be doing which may be blocking alignment, like if they got an ego issue, they're too attached to their ideas, or they're maybe timid. It's hard to get people to align with you if you're feeling a little underconfident, stuff like that. So we work with leaders on that. And then we also do interpersonal alignment. So we would help the leader map out all the relationships of key people that they're working with, and maybe team members, but it may be people like mentors or upper management, and expand their network. So we have a lot of tools to help them create relationships conducive to alignment.
Mm-hmm.
So what we mean by
Okay.
that is it's easy to work stuff out together. And if you have a problem, you just pick up the phone, you work it out. And when relationships are conducive to alignment, then your ideas have a place to take hold. And then the third level is team alignment, right? So
Okay.
team alignment is getting your whole team on the same page and helping everybody come up with a common view of like your mission, your vision, your 5-year plan, your 3-year plan, your 1-year plan, your work process, your roadmap. So alignment can be used for anything you want to get 2 or more people on the same page. And you can kind of do it, organic cowboy style when it's just a couple of people, but when it gets to be bigger, like you're a senior leader in an organization, it's a lot tougher. So
these three things that you just talked about there, can you buy these packages individually? Do you sell it all as a package?
well,
How
when
do
you
you?
work with us as a coach, it just comes with it. Like
I
we
see.
work with you. We have this like retainer arrangement, and it's an unlimited coaching arrangement.
I
And we
see.
help you work on all 3 of those levels. And if we do a team package, then we work with all your team members too.
Okay. Okay, great. All right, very good. And is it it's put up a retainer and then pay monthly? Is that or do you have different packages for different?
Yeah, it's like a subscription model, because when you get in there, we're doing live action coaching, which means
Okay.
that we're working with the leader live with their team. So especially for the team model. Like if we're doing private coaching, maybe not so much. But so we work with leaders on real issues and challenges, and we give them tools like the alignment tool. And then there's other tools we give them to do this work. And then they use it with their teams. So what's really cool
Okay.
about this is that they build a cohesive team. They implement the tools, solve problems they've been stuck on, like if they've been having trouble making decisions or having some conflict on the team. And then we develop them, because, at the heart of it is, if the leader has the right frame of mind, this inclusive frame of mind, and they don't have their ego in the way or too much fear in the way of bringing people in, that's where we see the leader take off.
Let me ask you about the fees and services a little more, because I know, and the reason I'm trying to dive in there is because every single company I've ever dealt with could use your services to a certain degree. I mean, every company, right? I was just telling the team the other day, I mean, there really isn't a company on planet Earth that isn't messy a little bit in some form or fashion in some way. And so the problem is a lot of small to medium-sized businesses can't afford usually services like yours, even though they need them. So is it month to month? Do I have to sign a 12-month contract?
No,
And
we do a 6-month contract, and then they
okay,
it goes month to month. After that, they
I
just have
see.
to
Okay.
cancel it. It takes at least 6 months to really get the skills down, embed them in the team, and we don't want to kind of just give it to you conceptually. We want to close that knowing doing gap. What is it that you've
Okay.
learned, and how do you do it,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So that by the time they become master aligners, and some people work with us longer because they've got big organizations. Like sometimes we're with CEOs, or we work with the head of a business unit, and there's a lot of people to align, so
I
really
see.
there's
I
work with
see.
them. And we do
And
some of
you
the traditional things, like we do 360s and
okay.
personality profiles. That's part of the process. I have one other thing I was going to mention is, in addition to my practice offering alignment coaching, I train people to become alignment coaches, right? So there are many, smaller wonderful practitioners now who are alignment coaches, like Mike Green, one of the guys that, was on your
Was on
podcast.
podcast. Yep.
He's a Master
Yep.
Certified Coach. So he's a certified alignment practitioner. And we're recruiting our next class of coaches that want to work with leaders in this way, really help them transform themselves and their teams as fast as possible.
Now, is that a referral partnership? Do you just, do they hire you to get this certification and then you're done with them? Or when they go on to get clients, is that, yeah.
Here's the thing. So I am the queen of alignment. Like if you want to get a really great alignment person, come to me in my practice, and I've got, I got you covered, and I've got really great alignment practitioners that I work with. So if the project's good, I can cherry pick the people for my practice. So we do that. Okay. So here's the deal. I'm, getting to the stage of my life where I've been doing alignment coaching for a long time, 30 years. And it is killer good. I've stayed busy as a coach my whole entire life. Meanwhile, I got to the stage of my life where it's like, what is the impact? What is the legacy I want to leave? Right. And I believe I want leaders to operate this way. I want them to be inclusive. I want them to be productive. I want them to feel like their good ideas can take hold. I want them to avoid bad ideas like what led to the ecological disaster in BP. I want leaders to be this way for my kids and for the future. That's my whole goal. And so by developing alignment practitioners, then I make sure that as I get to the point where I want to, be on the beach in Mexico, that work takes off in other countries. So right now I got alignment practitioner in South Africa and one in Barbados. We just did alignment down in Jamaica this last week with two alignment practitioners I'm training.
I see.
And so my goal is to spread alignment like around the world. That is my.
But are they part of your brand? Do they work?
They have their own.
Okay.
Some of them are part of my brand. I bring them in. You want to hire us? I bring in the best of my people that I'm training. But some of them have nothing to do with my brand. They have their own practices. And one thing I'm going to tell you real quick, this is kind of cool. So as an example, I train one alignment practitioner who works with people with autism. And so I don't do that. I'm especially in that.
I see.
They're using the principles and practices to help adults with autism learn how to be good employees and
how about that?
Date each other, as an example. There's a lot of specialties. And then you got like Mike Green, he takes people out in the bush, right? And
yeah, I love that.
So he's adding alignment to that, so it's all these different flavors of stuff that are not in my wheelhouse. I'm with businesses. That's my main thing,
Do you spend more time now teaching these individual alignment coaches, or do you spend more time engaging with businesses? How do you spend your time?
Right now, I'm starting at my 4th cohort of alignment practitioners. Okay. So we have program starts in the fall and one that starts in the, just school semester.
I see.
Yeah. And it's all virtual. And so I'm always sure that I'm kicking out practitioners. Now I'm starting to develop the master caps. Those are called certified alignment practitioners. They're coaches that do alignment, but you don't have to be a coach. You could be a project manager. You could be a change management person, HR person. You could be a leader. So anyway, that program is helping me make sure that there's always a steady supply of people out teaching alignments, right?
If you're interested,
software that for alignment that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And what is it? Like, tell me about it.
Well, so the alignment process is about people putting a proposal out there and inviting people to give feedback, which everybody does. But it's got these 5 C's formula that allows the feedback to come in a way that makes it easy to integrate multiple people's ideas into the formula. And then there's a whole process for voting that kind of depends on, how hierarchical you are, how much you want to distribute the decision-making authority.
What's the name of the software?
It's not done yet. It's called Art of Alignment Online. This one's going to be cool.
Okay.
So,
all right.
So this software would allow leaders to put their proposal in there, gather all the information, help get decisions, to have a place where all those decisions are documented. And then eventually it'll be in multiple languages. So you could work in you could put your ideas in Spanish and it would make them English or something like that.
So you, not only are you a professional coach yourself, but you've built a company of people that do that, and you're teaching other people to go out and do it. And you're going to now build some software. So now you're going to be a tech company. By the way, are you going to launch that software under a different?
I'm really busy. Did what now?
you going to launch the software under a different company name or LLC, or are you going to
No,
fund
it's all coming under LeadershipSmarts.
Okay. All right. And
Yeah.
oh, by the way, you also wrote a book somewhere in your spare time. And let's talk about that. By the way, for the listeners, the name of the book is The Art of Alignment, Patty Beach. It's available on Amazon, and the reviews on Amazon for it are outstanding. Congratulations on that. Tell us about the book real quick.
Okay. So first of all, I want to mention the subtitle because that's important, right?
Okay. Yep.
The subtitle is A Practical Guide to Inclusive Leadership, right? And that tells you really what the book's about. It's my belief that, leadership used to be more like selling and telling and, do what I say and that kind of stuff, right? That was leadership. And that's how you reached alignment, was by being the big boss and being in charge and having carrots and sticks to get people to do stuff. And that works. There's nothing wrong with it. It's built the biggest companies in the world, right? But meanwhile, my belief is that we need a new form of leadership that's inclusive. That means that every voice matters, that you should never, as a leader, say, oh, I don't want your idea, or, don't tell me about that. You should always be open to hearing from people. Meanwhile, like I said, inclusive doesn't mean that everybody's going to have a vote in what happens, or that you keep working until everybody's happy. In the end, in a business, you had to be strategic. And so you hear a lot of good ideas. How do you narrow those ideas into the few that you really want to do? But if you do it in an inclusive way, if you include people in that decision-making process, or even let them just listen to the decision-making process or weigh in on the decision-making process, what you find is that people don't tear down what they build up. So one of the principles of alignment in the book is called Iterative Co-Creation. So
what does that mean?
Yeah. Well, iterative means it takes multiple steps. Like if I'm going to co-create with you, I'll give you an idea, get your reaction, and then I need to give you time to think about it. Then we come back to it. That it has to be iterative, and especially in a company where you have multiple layers, like you might have to get your team to get clear and then run it up the flagpole to senior leadership, or run it by certain people, and that's usually not all at the same time, unless you have my future software. You can do it all at the same time. But anyway, it's a series of Zoom meetings, and all of that, and helping leaders understand that so that they don't do what's normally been done, which is, I'll just give you a 20-minute slot. I'll talk about this for 18 minutes and give you 2 minutes to weigh in, and then we hope we got a decision, and then you didn't do it. We have no idea why you didn't do it, right? We go, right? That's how it's normally happening, right? So in the iterative part, and then co-creative means I bring people into it. I listen to them. I listen to learn. I don't just include them so they feel included.
Right.
I include them because they have good ideas, and why wouldn't I include them? That's my talent. That's my brain trust that I'm trying to tap into. So that's what the book's about. How to do that in an efficient, fair, transparent way, so that whatever good idea you have is way better by the time that you've included other people.
Did you write the book for marketing purposes, for the business, for your own personal legacy? What was the original strategy for the book?
I wrote the book as a vanity book. Like I just wanted to write a book. I didn't have a lot of strategy around marketing, but I also wrote the book because I thought these are really great ideas. Like I've been doing this and I've seen teams transform, So I wrote the book for leaders. It's written not for coaches or OD consultants and stuff like that. It's written for leaders like Roger, my husband I was talking about, or startup founders, or they could be a senior leader. It doesn't really matter what level you are in the organization, but anybody in business. It could be like a government agency, or it could be a university. It doesn't matter. But if you're a leader and you want to make things happen, then I wrote that book for you.
Okay, and very good. Very good. I was
actually shocked people bought it. I and they liked it. And I actually read the book through. Finally, when I got the box, opened it up, and and I thought I've never actually read it all the way through because I had always edited it as I went, and finally stop editing. So I started reading it the night I got my book, and I read it for about an hour and a half. Then I went to bed. I had another hour and a half in the morning, and I was like, "Damn, that's actually pretty good."
Did you have a ghostwriter?
No, I did not. I worked with Scribe. They helped me. I had a writing coach. So there was no ghostwriter. And they gave me an editor. And it was really kind of interesting because they don't want to influence the writer too much. So they won't tell you if it's good or bad. They won't tell you it's good or give you praise or any of that as you're writing it. They say, we will just make sure you don't kick out a bad book. So that's all they say throughout the entire process. So
Interesting.
as I'm writing it, I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, like I need some feedback here. Is this any good? And people that I gave it to as beta testers said it was good, but I didn't believe them because they were my friends, so I'm like, yeah, you have to say that.
Are you going to do an audio version?
I'm working on an audio version.
Very good. Okay. Very good. That's how I listen. I mean, I don't even
Everybody
know. Yeah. You're on the treadmill, you're on your walk, or you're on your drive, whatever. It's just
Yeah.
so much easier,
I
right?
can't
So
even
much,
read anymore. Like I
yeah.
can't read. I have to listen to it myself. I'm lame that
Yeah.
way. But you would want to get the book anyway, because there's a lot of things that, there's charts and
You want to
stuff in there.
reference? Good.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. And it's available on Amazon, The Art of Alignment, A Practical Guide to Inclusive Leadership by Patty Beach. Congratulations on the book. I want to ask you a few wrap-up questions here as we get close. And by the way, our time is flying by. I could ask you a million more questions. A couple of things here. What is the most common challenge or issue, trying to think of the right word, with a CEO that you meet? You've met a bunch of CEOs, the narcissist, the ego, the original founder who created something that thinks they know everything. I mean, you've seen it all, right? You've probably seen it all.
Yes, I have seen it all.
What's the most common challenge or problem you see with a CEO? And what advice would you give to that person? I know that's what you get paid to do for a living, but maybe a couple of tips here on the podcast.
I think that the biggest, challenge with the CEO is that they can get really impatient, and with good reason. Time is money. When you're a CEO, you're trying to do things, etc. And they underestimate getting people involved, the time it takes to get people involved. What I will say is if they do get people involved early on, it pays off. It's faster in the long run. But what they do is they kind of tend to bake things out and roll it out and stuff like that in a kind of a closed quarter room, et cetera. And they're not tapping into the ideas from the bottom up. So that would be my advice.
How about it? How about some quick tips for an incoming CEO where the original founders have run the business, or maybe it was a family business, family original founders, and now all of a sudden this outsider's coming in?
Yeah, well, you always underestimate. Here's the thing. I was working with a CEO like this, and he had been baking everything off, with his co-founder and stuff like that. And then he brought in new team members, and they were doing this big, kickoff meeting and helping everybody get on the same page. And he thought, oh, everything that I'm saying, they're going to get it exactly like I'm saying it, and they're going to, and he was shocked. He thought, and partially too, because he works with like software development and they're kind of quiet, and I had said, hey, we need to do sessions. And he said, well, I don't know if they'll get engagement. They'll get radio silence. Part of it was radio silence because his psychological size, like he's so important. I don't want to challenge, or how do I look good with this person, et cetera, And so I was like, you got to really engage. You have to ask questions. That's why in my book, I got the 5 C's so that they know how to make sure that they're asking for clarifications, for compliments on an idea, concerns about it, suggested changes, commitment. Otherwise, you think they're committed. They're all nodding. Here's important. Nodding heads like you're doing right now does not mean anything. It doesn't mean I understand. It doesn't mean I agree. It means nothing. Right?
Oh, that's good.
Until you get in there and really learn how to probe, that's the second step of alignment. Then you'll see, oh, now they got it. So that you're not like, oh, you have that joke, like my boss told me, bring a rock. So I brought a rock. It's not that rock, right? And it's because they don't take the time to make sure that the person understands what kind of rock and why that rock matters, and how much time you think it should take for them to bring a rock and all that stuff.
That's good stuff, Patty. Well, we could do a whole nother podcast episode on some of this stuff now we're getting into. I always tell, as a CEO myself, not only with Riderflex, our recruiting firm, but for some companies before, longtime executive, when I'm talking to young CEOs now, one of the very first things I say is, listen, here's the deal. Talk less, listen more, and ask questions. I know that you've gotten to where you're at primarily by telling and sharing and your ideas, and you did this, but now that you're up here, you need to listen more and ask more questions, which you're not used to doing.
Yeah, that's one of the key thing. I have that listen to learn,
I
right?
love that.
So a lot
I
of times
love
they
that.
listen because I'll listen to make you feel heard, because of course I'm important and you need to feel heard. And when I feel like you're heard, then you feel important, which is true.
Yes,
Nothing wrong
yes.
with that. But if I'm actually listening, not just for you to feel heard, but so I hear you and get something out of it, then we got something going on. Now you're going to be super stoked that, wow, I gave an idea to my CEO and he loved it and made something happen. Oh, now I'm on fire to work for this company, right? So
Yes.
that's a very subtle but important distinction that I would say is kind of the main nut to crack with the people that we're coaching. How do they put aside their judgment long enough for this person to inform their judgment? Doesn't mean they have to agree, doesn't mean they have to actually do what that person said. They need to know why they're saying no to it, and can they bring that into the equation? So now we're working on alignment. Otherwise, we're just working on until you figure out what I want you to do, right? I'm not gonna write yet. No, not yet. That's not it. Right?
Oh, that is good stuff, Patty. That's good
Yeah, you're
stuff.
missing all the juice from all these people and all their great ideas. And if you really want your business to grow, that's a key skill.
Good stuff. Patty Beach, connect with her on LinkedIn, but and the company website, leadershipsmarts.com. You can go there. Last question for you. At this stage in your life, kind of going forward, how would you define your core purpose in life moving forward? What does that sound like for you?
Yes. So my core purpose is to help everyone realize that every voice matters, and together we really can solve any problem.
Oof. Good
That's
stuff.
it.
Good stuff.
All right.
Patty, thank you so much for being on the Riderflex podcast. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I love being here. It's great fun talking to you.